If you're trying to be all things to all people, you end up being invisible to everyone. And this is why most agents are broke. They don't stand out. They look and sound just like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry realtor chasing the next commission check. So if you want more listings, you want more money, and you want more respect from the clients you serve, stop being a generalist and start being a specialist. Let me explain. Now, you already know this, but the riches are in the niches, right? I mean, there's no surprise. This is not new information. But when you look at the medical field or any field for that matter, the specialists always make more than the generalist in every single case. And so let's talk about why you would really want to niche down as a real estate agent. So number one, you get higher return on your time. Just think about how simple this is. That if you had two options, either A, you go after this 1,000 cluster of homes where you have no idea who they are. You don't know who you're calling. You don't know if they have any intention of moving, et cetera, which is what most agents do. They just pick up the phone. They call it circle prospecting. They just start dialing for dollars versus calling a list of 1,000 people for a reason. They're a specific demographic. They're going through a specific pain point. They're going through a specific change in their life, and it's more targeted. The likelihood is that your return, you would get a lot more business going after that targeted group versus going after some random homeowners. Number two, it's a higher perceived value. Let me explain what I mean. So let's play a little game. What message do you think resonates more with a specific audience? And not only does the message resonate more, but what message do you think generates more income? Option A, I help people get organized. That's pretty general. Okay, fine. That's option number one. Option number two, or option B, I help busy professionals get organized. Okay, that's better. Now, if I'm a busy professional, I could say, oh, they're talking to me. Interesting. But look at option number C. All right, so watch this. Here's what it sounds like. I help busy single moms who work full time get more organized so that they make more money and have more time with their kids. Now, if you know anything about business or anything about copywriting or anything about marketing, you know that option C would crush, where option A and option B, it's just too broad. We don't know who you're referring to. So you probably can't get that much for this offer, right? This offer right here, I help people get organized. I mean, you might be able to charge, I don't know, $100 for that, perhaps. Option B, if we go back to option B, I help busy professionals. So maybe those people make more income, so you can maybe charge a little bit more for that. But then going back to option C, when you create a message like this with the specific message on who this is for, and oh, by the way, what you help them solve, you can charge an infinitely more amount of money. We just go back to the doctor scenario, right? When we talk about the general practitioner or your primary care physician, well, they can't charge that much because you go see them for general reasons, right? I mean, you go get your physical and you go get a checkup, et cetera, et cetera. But when there's something wrong specifically, what does your general practitioner do? Oh, that's right. They refer you to a specialist. And they say, okay, this is the person, this is the doctor in this area who specializes in this area. This is who you need to go and see. And as a result of that specialist niching down, they actually make more money, which is reason number 3, is to make more money. You see, when real estate agents just go after everybody and they try to market and they try to prospect and they try to just go after anybody with a pulse, they end up attracting nobody because it's the messaging, which we're going to talk about in just a second, isn't compelling. And so when you are cold calling, maybe just some random neighborhood, and you do some random circle prospecting, and your messaging sounds something like this: hey, Mr. Jones, this is Bobby calling with XY Real Estate. I was just calling to see if you had any interest in selling your home. Wah, wah, wah. It doesn't work very good. And you know this to be true. If you do any amount of cold calling and that's the message, that's what you think is going to compel somebody to have a conversation with you, you know, I know it just doesn't work that well. Versus when we get into this video a little bit more, you're calling a specific person for a specific reason who's going through a specific problem, and you can communicate those problems in such a way that positions you as a person who can help solve those problems. Okay, now that person is more likely to have a conversation with you, which leads to more money. And then lastly, number 4 is to eliminate competition. And so when you niche down, you become a service provider of one. What I mean by that is a competition of one. What I mean by that is specifically is, let's just say, and for the sake of this this video, that we're going to use probate as the case study here. Okay. Now, there's nothing innately special about probate as the niche. I'm just using that as the example. So please don't think that this video is about probate, okay? Please do not think that way. It could be anything. This could be dealing with seniors. This could be dealing with people that are going through divorce. This could be downsizers. This could be landlords. This could be absentee owners. This could be, relocation. This could be luxury. This could be condos. This could be ranches. This could be colonials. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm just using probate as an example, okay? Hopefully that's fair. Now, when you specialize in probate, you are probably either the only one or one of very, very, very few agents in the marketplace that actually specialize in probate. Now, in this video, I also don't want you to get this twisted. This does not mean that, you're only, all you do is probate. And if you get a referral from a past client who wants to list, maybe it's your next door neighbor and they want to list and sell their home, listen, we're not being naive. I'm not asking you to have an ego about this thing. You're of course going to take on that business. What I am talking about is when it comes to new client acquisition, going after and generating new opportunities and new leads for your business, that if you niche down and you specialize, it will be way easier for you to generate new business, okay? So when you specialize in probate, you're able to communicate with people in your market going through probate in a way that no other agent can. You understand the nuance of probate real estate in a way that no other agent understands it, and therefore are able to show up and serve that person in, yet again, such a way that no other agent can. Now, once you build a reputation and a brand around this, not only is it easier to convert strangers because of this specialty, but now you become the go-to person in your market for this specific niche. Now you can get people like probate attorneys to start referring you clients. And then your sphere of influence starts to get to know you as this probate expert. So when they have a friend or a family member who has questions, who are going through this very difficult process, who do they turn to? They turn to you, which means that you can command a premium for the amount of money that you charge to handle these cases. So let's just take a minute here to talk about, how do you pick a niche? All right, how do you pick a niche? And if you need help, besides this video, there's a link in the description. I just dropped my free listing agent course. I show you exactly how to pick a niche. I show you the best niches to go after. There's a link to that in the description. If you want access to it, click the link to get started. So when we talk about picking a niche, there's 2 questions that you have to answer. There's the who, and then there's the what. So when we talk about who, we're talking about a specific demographic of people. And the way I think about the who is based on primarily either life event or property type. These are the 2 things I think about. So when I think about the who, it's okay, I'm going to say, what type of life event are they going through? They might be first-time home buyers. They might be newlyweds. They might just have had a baby. They might be people that have just gone through a divorce. This is people that we talked about before with the probate niche that have just lost a loved one who didn't have a will or trust. This might be people that are looking to downsize. This might be people looking to move into assisted living. This might be people relocating for a new job, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the life event. So that's what we're thinking about the who. The other part of who, right? So this is A and then this is B, is the different types of properties that you can specialize in. So maybe you specialize in new construction. Maybe you're going to specialize in selling condos. Maybe you're going to specialize in selling luxury. Those are the two different ways you can pick the who. When we talk about the what, specifically, we're talking about what pain points do you help solve? What do you help them with specifically? And you're going to need this for this next part of the video, because once you understand pain points, then you can start to work on your messaging, which is the most important part about really converting and providing value into your niche. So again, we're going to just stay with this probate example. So let's just brainstorm together, okay? This can be any one of your niches. I'm walking you through an exercise, just like I was coaching you one-on-one right now, that you'd be doing this with me, all right? So what is the niche? We just talked about that. In this case, we're going to pretend it's probate. So when we start to think about our messaging, we have to think about, okay, what are the pain points that these people go through? And so when we look at probate, they get into a property where they're typically not located, meaning they are responsible for handling an estate in areas in which they don't live. So that's a huge problem for them. Why? It's because they don't have any relationships with real estate agents or contractors or painters or HVAC people. They don't have any of that. So they don't have any resources. They don't know the local market. They don't understand what's going on in that local area. The other thing is typically is the property is in some type of bad condition, or it needs to be there needs to be things done to that property before it could be sold. So those are just two big pain points for most people that become executors of an estate. Okay, fine. Once that's happened, then you want to create a script. So as you're reaching out to these people, as you're picking up the phone and you're calling these people, okay, the messaging cannot be bland. If it is bland, it goes back to the problem that we're hopefully solving in this video, which is to stand out from the crowd. If you sound like everybody else and you look like everybody else, the perception is you are just like everyone else. So when we're creating our messaging and our script, and you can do this not only just with your cold calling script, but you can do this with direct mail, you can do this with your content, you can do this with your events, etc. What we don't want to do is, and what we will not do, is ask if they have any of these symptoms. We're not going to ask them if they have any of these problems. The reason why we don't want to say, well, Mr. Seller or prospect rather, this is John with Billy Bob's Real Estate, and I was calling because I see that you're going through the probate process, and I'm just curious if there's anything with the property's condition that you might need help with. It comes across with what we call perceived bias. That when we ask that question, it elicits psychological reactance. It backfires on us because it comes across like you want something from them. And so even if they have one of these problems, they're not going to tell you because you sound salesy. You sound like you're reaching out to me from out of the blue and you want something from me. So if I take your baited question and I answer it with, yeah, it's funny you should call. I was hoping, some random realtor was going to call me and ask me if I needed. No, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to be met with a lot of resistance. So what you want to do instead of that is you want to assume that they don't have any of the symptoms and allow them to argue with you that you are wrong. This way, the perception is that you're not needy, you're not desperate you're not asking them for anything. It's like almost like the phone call in this case was for their benefit, not your benefit. So as an example of that, okay? And if you don't have all my scripts, you can grab my scripts. There's a link to that in the description as well. When you're communicating, in this case to a probate prospect, Mr. Prospect, listen, I'm reaching out because my My notes tell me that you just that you're handling the estate over there at 123 Main Street. And most people I talk to going through the probate process tell me that some of their challenges include things like not having resources because they're not from the area, or number two, the property in which they're responsible for getting sold on behalf of the estate needs a lot of help and they just don't know where to turn. But I'm assuming that's not the case for you. Would that be fair? And we get the person to say, well, no, a matter of fact, yeah, I have. I mean, both of those are an issue for me. And because the purpose of a prospecting phone call, now listen to me very closely. The purpose of a prospecting phone call, most realtors would say, is to generate a lead or to get an appointment. The purpose of a prospecting phone call is to find people in pain that you can solve. See, prospecting and cold calling is simply marketing. Sales happens after you've identified somebody with a problem that you can solve. That's what sales is. That's why this is called telemarketing. And so don't get those two things twisted. And so your goal is to get somebody from logic, which is how you're met on every cold call you've ever made, right? Somebody picks up the phone and they go into that situation logically. Your goal is to ask questions to get them emotional. And we're not talking about them crying with tissues, on the couch. We're talking about what are the problems that they're in right now such that we can solve.